Okay, so this is my setup for turning a Syncork handle. Please don't laugh too hard at what it looks like. I know it's pretty much a hack job, but what basically is going on here is I've got a drill set up with a little clamp over the trigger and two mounting it to this table here. Table assembly, I guess. I won't get into what it really is. Tighten this down a bit. You don't want you don't need the thing spinning too fast. You just want it spinning at a decent speed. Try and keep it as concentric as possible. That depends mostly on your setup for this. And you could, I mean, I actually kind of already started a little bit. I first started doing this using one of these, which is what they recommend you use. This works, but it has issues. It tears out the individual cells of this stuff because if you notice when you probably did notice, it's made up of a bunch of tiny little cells like styrofoam is. So using this will rip the cells out of the surface as you're shaping it because it's just too coarse. So you need something finer, but you need to actually cut it, not just abrade it or melt it away. So for that reason, what I use now is this guy. It is not meant to be a handheld tool. It's a cheap little belt sander. I use it for knife making. I've got outfitted on here. I've got a 50. You can see how coarse that is. You want the coarsest abrasive belt you can find, and you want it to have be able to have good life and have it be very sharp because you need to actually cut this material, which kind of resists being cut by abrasive means without burning it. So the coarsest grit you can find that'll cut the cells without tearing them out, that's exactly what you want. And what I'll basically do with this, you don't have to worry about the squeeze out too much. You can cut all that down with the belt. You want to make sure you cover up your reel seat. I use electrical tape because when you do this way, you need to make sure that you're getting enough, you need lubricant or you need coolant in order to do this, or else you will burn your handle. So electrical tape resists water and stays on there a lot better than masking tape does. So I'll do this, I'll just bring it along and I'll shape it how I want. You want to go really slowly doing this. If you overheat the material, what'll happen is it'll stop cutting. It'll have a different appearance to it while it's being worked, and the material tends to compress at the surface. So then if it gets melted and it heats up too much, it's compressed and it becomes more of a solid plastic. So when you finish the handle, you get these glazed spots, and that's where it was overheated. So you want to keep the whole handle as cool as possible. Use tons of water. I have a little squirt bottle I use filled with water that I'll use just for this. And I'll just spritz it and keep the whole thing sopping wet. It helps to keep the handle cool when you're shaping it. It also helps to keep the belt from clogging with the cut up Syncork bits, because it clogs very fast, and you are especially going to need it when you go to hand shape it. I only use that thing just for the rough shaping. Afterwards, I'll go in and I'll just take the belt off and I'll hold it in my hands, and then I'll use that like a sheet of sandpaper. You have to turn the feed speed up on your drill or your lathe or whatever it is you're using to do this. Oh, and for anyone who's wondering, there's an arbor there of electrical tape, so I'm not scoring the blank, I'm not damaging it. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I don't have a cameraman, so I'm going to do this real quick. It's basically just like turning anything else. Otherwise, you just need to keep in mind, you have to keep this thing wet. You have to use the abrasives if you want a really, really nice surface finish. You can get away with using this thing, which doesn't make hardly any heat at all, so you don't have to worry about melting, but it will tear out the cells, and it just is not as good a looking handle as the material really can be. So I'm going to shape this and be back.